Before we begin, I just want to apologize if the audio of the video I'm covering is a little off in this commentary. I don't know why, but I could not get a copy of it that didn't sound kind of strange, despite my best efforts, so again, for that, I do apologize. However, I do think my audience should be made aware of the 90s Router, a man who has gotten into some controversy recently and made a video addressing it. Discord's biggest creep, the 90s Router it's called, with unflattering depictions of people who have criticized him the most as of late. People who are described in the video as
a literal head with a mullet, Nancy Drew's retarded nephew, and the big gay lion himself.
Yeah, 90s Router really likes insulting people, which I'd argue kind of goes against the tone of a video that's supposed to address serious accusations. However, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I do enjoy this part, though, where he does this massive takedown of all of his detractors by saying they're not special, I guess?
For those in the ACC or anyone attached to LIO, I know that you think you're special, and I know you think you deserve answers. But the simple truth is that you aren't. You aren't special, nor is Ace, or Glass, or Yen, or Gilded, nor me. LIO certainly is.
Now, what this has to do with the genuinely serious concerns regarding the 90s Router, I admit I have no idea whatsoever.
Also, 90s Router, my mother actually thinks I'm very special.
Similarly, I am confused regarding the relevance of this quip implying that Vlad's egotistical, I guess?
So this is Gilded Poo. His mullet and flannel combo tell me that he isn't wealthy and privileged, nor is he gold-plated, but his attitude towards the situation leads me to believe that he thinks he smells like roses, if you catch my drift.
Because even if Vlad is full of himself, even if Ace isn't all that intelligent, even if LIO is gay, what does that have to do with the legitimacy of what's being said? Well, the answer is somewhere between jack and shit, as seen by the fact that 90s Router concedes on a lot of it anyway. The section on Novak, a mod of his that, to my understanding, was accused of predation, is a very good example of this, as it ends with him saying,
"The evidence got to be way too much, and everything I read made me fucking sick. And in the end, I just decided to cut ties with him."
Now, he didn't actually believe this at first, which he pins on a combination of Novak's previously saying there were people after him, and the fact that he doesn't trust the art commentary community, I guess.
Now, it wasn't until I was given any of this evidence that I ever really thought much about it, but considering Novak spoke a lot about pedophiles and groups that he was after, trying to take him down, I wasn't really sure that this wasn't something that was being coordinated by them in the ACC, and, well, they really haven't given me much trust or faith, and as they've proved time and time again that smearing my name, context be damned, that was the only goal. They already brought one mod into this, and considering he cleared his name and then they continued to try and lambaste him, it wouldn't be a shocker to think that this was bullshit too.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like disbelieving people because you have a bad run-in with them previously is inherently irrational. However, I am going to note that there's a reason why claims like this are based around evidence. Because then you don't need to trust the person giving you this information. All you need to do is look at what they have to back it up. I also want to take a moment and say that 90s Router criticizes the people who investigated this for not caring about the victims, and mentions the fact that although he is not the predator in this situation, his name has been referenced the most.
The one thing I can't get out of my head, though, is if a community cares so goddamn much about other people's safety, and to see justice come to the people who deserve it, why would they plaster this all over social media, on their live streams, and make a proper investigation that much harder to conduct? Why act like you care about the safety of children when this evidence is about one person, but you've plastered another's face all over your thumbnail?
Because when I think of somebody who cares about the victims, I think of Gilded Poo, who has previously said this.
And the second thing that I have to say about all of that is, quite frankly, fuck the victims. I don't give a fuck about any of them. not my kid, not my fucking problem, and fuck you.
But to answer your question, the 90s router, it's because it was your server where Novax was given moderation powers, and you're the one who, to my understanding, handed ownership of the server to Novax later on. One of the things the 90s router got in trouble for was somebody in his server, not the man himself to be clear, speculated on if the child of a woman named Monstrous was actually trans. Here is him addressing that incident.
He's also the man that's gone on record as stating that people in my community were, quote unquote, talking about toddlers' genitals. Yeah, that's pretty fucking gross. So here's the context. It's someone recalling a possibly mentally ill woman discussing forcing transitioning on her unborn child, or that, after the fact, she may have.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, everybody is possibly everything. So saying that doesn't really communicate anything to your audience. I also want to acknowledge that you just get this conversation kind of wrong. You say this conversation is about somebody saying they're going to force their child to transition. It's actually somebody remembering that other people had told them that Monstrous had said something which indicated this. Not that she had directly said this for the record, but what she said implied it. It's genuinely on the same level as,
"But I've read things other people have written about the things you've written, and I do not approve of the things I've read from others about the things they've read from you. Not one bit, sir."
And by the way, 90s Router is actually being somewhat dishonest through showing these screenshots in particular. Vlad talks about this in his video on 90s Router, but Monstrous DM'd him specifically about a conversation that was happening, which includes a part that was not present in the screenshots he shows. Specifically, it includes this person saying they're pretty sure Monstrous' child is biologically male, which is not actually shown in the video the 90s Router made.
Now, it seems crazy to twist a topic about a woman and her forced ideologies about her children,
which you can't prove exist, meaning all you're doing is allowing your server to make abhorrent claims about people without any evidence. Also, there's this attempt to call hypocrisy that I just want to dissect real quick.
Let me get this straight. It's okay to bring up topics pertaining to my child, but not someone you associate with?
Gilded was not doing the same thing as that other person, though. He was asking you a rhetorical question for the sake of making his point. The person in your server was speculating about Monstrous' parenting based on no evidence whatsoever. While on this topic, he also tries to call Lio out for having some toxic people around him. I'm just going to let that play out.
Let me give you a few examples of the colorful language his followers exhibit. And keep in mind, most of these people claim to be at least liberal in one way or another.
Yeah, you got any evidence for that at all to back up your claim? No? Okay.
They definitely promote female empowerment, or at least I know Lio does.
He then plays a clip from the Rosa call that lacks any clear connection to what he just said. It does nothing more than break the pace of the video. Speaking of totally breaking the pace, what was up with that horribly unfunny, in my opinion at least, parody ad you did for Senate, a server which hasn't been public for several months at this point? For those curious, it's filled with such biting satire as, some people in there are mentally ill, others are transgender, and Lio had a found family once. It is at this point I wish to remind you all this video is responding to serious accusations, and 90s Router threw in very generic jokes that people have heard tons of times before. I will say, I did find him saying that Lio loves to rub his greasy fingers all over Lionel to be kind of funny, not because the joke itself was funny, but because he showed a clip where Lio was obviously wearing gloves.
And they seem extremely concerned about transgender equality, even possibly for unborn or extremely young children.
Because when I think of somebody who is concerned about transgender equality, I think of Gilded Poo, somebody whose videos have seen him misgender multiple trans people. and who even once had a debate over the topic of misgendering Hopeless Peaches, which he was very much on the side of doing. Now, this is all in some attempt to prove that Lio hasn't actually changed since the Rosa call, and even ignoring the fact that doesn't really matter given the situation, I do want to discuss this line of reasoning as well.
Now, Lio would have you believe that he's a changed man and that he would never do that anymore. I think he would even have you buy that the Rosa call changed his perspective. He's shown himself more than once in public, on live streams, and if he's willing to speak to people like this in front of viewers, it's only a wonder what he's willing to do behind closed doors.
But even ignoring the fact that he doesn't say what was wrong with the comments Lio left, that still isn't evidence. You are quite literally telling us just to imagine the proof. Before I get into the next part of the video I want to discuss, I should note that he's talking about a previous run-in he had with Lio, which revolved around a video he made that accused Lio of predation.
The video releases to some moderate success, and within the next few hours, I'm in a live stream to answer some questions about my video. So for clarification, I already knew this wasn't going to go well beforehand, but I did it anyways despite knowing that there was a clear bias against me. One by one, I'm asked the same three questions. What proof do I have? Where did I source my information? And why would I make such a claim without any evidence? By a rotating cast of people that are terminally late to the live stream and therefore have to echo the same questions, and definitely not because this is literally all they have to pin me with, and repeating the same sentiment over and over is the easiest way to condemn someone in the public eye. Absolutely not.
Or those could just be the most important questions to ask somebody when they make serious claims. What evidence you have and where you got it is incredibly consequential knowledge when it comes to serious topics like this. And if you fail to provide proper sources, then yeah, obviously the logical follow-up is, why did you make a claim like this? You frame it as an attempt to discredit you and note the stream is biased against you, but honestly, these just sound like the most generic questions you could ask somebody in your situation. My final thoughts are that Router failed to adequately defend himself from the accusations. Good night and good luck.